Medical disclaimer. This podcast is intended for educational purposes only and does not serve as medical advice. Kate and John are not medical professionals. This podcast is not intended to diagnose, treat, or prevent any illness. Always consult your physician before making lifestyle changes. Welcome back to the Illuminated Path. This is episode 19. What are we talking about today?
We are talking about kind of that cycle that people get stuck in where they're really waiting for external circumstances to change in order to feel better, feel happier. So it's definitely a topic of conversation, especially as we're in the new year and people are setting goals and really setting those expectations for themselves.
Yeah. How's the week?
The week is good. We had a quiet New Year's Eve. We did not stay up till midnight. Went to bed around like 10:30 because we needed our sleep. Um,
I was really proud of us though, because we were kind of like, we both thought of it and we were like, hey, I was like, I wanted to talk to you about New Year's. And I was like, well, I feel like our schedule is more important. And like we usually have a quiet holiday anyway, so I liked it.
yeah, and then, well, just a few days before New Year's
Yeah.
Eve, my friend Jess came and visited, and we had dinner and caught up and went in our sauna, and it was great. And then next thing you know, it was literally 2 a.m. by the time she left the house, and I was
Yeah.
like, "Oh my gosh, I don't think I've stayed up this late at all in like a very long time." So I was a zombie the next day, and so New Year's Eve was just a couple days after that, and I was like, "No, I need to, like, stick to my schedule because that was rough."
Yeah.
Um, but it was worth it and a great time. We also got our Costco membership,
Mm,
so
yep.
I'm in my Costco era now. There's so much there, like, there's a really great organic products and produce, and, they've committed to not using a peel, and
Yeah.
there's a ton of just
Sweet.
great things there, and it's right around the corner from us, so very, very excited about that.
Yeah, we still got to talk about appeal and preservatives and things on foods, but yeah, Costco's great. I got insulated pants from there.
That you, like, have not stopped wearing.
Oh my God, they're like pajamas, but they look like khakis. I'm wearing them right now, but you can't see. Um, Anything else for the week?
No, I don't think so. How about you?
I'm really good. We've been crushing it at the gym, which has had me, you know, I've tracked my calories, I've been tracking my water, I've been getting better in terms of like my fasting schedule. And I think initially, like for many years, I was like, that's just over the top. And that was programming I received mostly from my family. But
Mhm.
also now I just see it as like the ultimate like way of honoring and respecting my body. Like I'm tracking, I know exactly what goes in. And
Yeah,
it
I
feels
mean,
good.
I think it may be too much for some people, but, like, you feel good when you do it. You don't
Yeah.
feel like it's too much or restrictive, so, like, you have to choose what works for you.
Yeah. Um we I actually, do you have your first session today? Is that what your meeting is?
Yeah.
So we got 3 more sessions each with our energy healer. Um, it has been phenomenal. I had my next one with her the other day, and she's just helping me so much, like with creativity. And we focused this last session on the business, and it helped a lot because she told me at one point, she said, "You're already doing it. Like you're already there. You need to just stay in the energetic space that you're in."
Mhm.
And it reminded me like when you manifest, you have to change your internal reality first, your thinking and your belief systems. And I feel like I've changed that, but there's a level of impatience. And that's what she said is like you're in that period in between waiting for the external to change. And you got to just keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah.
So that's been great. She also encouraged me to share more about my story in a way that feels right for me because I think talking about depression and medication and suicide recovery and all that, it tends to come out like whiny and sympathy seeking, and I don't really identify with a lot of it, so I don't share too much. But we have a really cool idea. I wrote an article years ago on my self-help blog, 49 life lessons I learned from suicide. So we're actually going to turn that into like a content series, and I'm really excited because it'll be really cool, digestible, like profound blurbs that will make great content, and I think will deliver a lot of value. So
Yeah, absolutely.
let's get started. Um, this is a quote, an interesting quote. Do you want to share that?
Yeah, it's by a man named James Allen. He said, "People are anxious to improve their circumstances, but are unwilling to improve themselves, and that is why they remain bound." So I think this is very valid. And it's really what we wanted to talk about today because so many people, like, they want to change their external world. They want the better job. They want, something to change within their home circumstances. They want to be in a relationship or they want to be able to travel or whatever it is. And like, they continue to look outside of themselves for the fulfillment and happiness that they're seeking without recognizing that so much of the work has to be your internal mindset first before you're going to see the external circumstances change. I mean, this is relevant to what you were just talking about, like
Yeah.
that in between period of like wanting your external circumstances to change, but knowing that like your mindset has to be in it first.
Well, I think there's also a misconception of, you know, thinking that your external changes just by like you, the bigger house, the nicer car. But those aren't the things that really change your life. What changes your life is the internal, the mindset work. Our energy healer said to me, because we were talking about like me putting out music this year, and she said, readiness is not a feeling, it's a decision.
Mhm.
And that statement like slapped me in the face. Like I was just like, wow, yeah, you're right. And I think, people get caught in that cycle, but I think there's also a misunderstanding of what breaks the cycle.
Yeah, I think that's true in so many circumstances, like readiness to move on from a job and search for something different, or the readiness to start a business, like looking for the right time for something, or being stuck in a cycle of like continually setting goals and thinking that once you reach the goal, you're gonna have like this major sigh of relief and everything is better, everything has changed. And it's like you're missing out on life. Like, you're just missing out on your day to day, which makes up everything.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about this. Like, we're not fans of hustle culture because a big part of that, I can't tell you how many entrepreneurs I've seen who it's, oh, I wanted this milestone. I wanted to reach this amount of revenue. I wanted to get this car. And they never stop to like just be grateful for it. And what
Mhm.
happens is you're stuck in the hustle, you're constantly grinding, and that forces you to always be looking at the future and you don't take time for the present.
Yeah, you said it to me the other day too, was like what you also talked about, how like you need to kind of sometimes remember to look back at where you came from and like how far
Mm,
you've come and like be present in what is now because you've created so much and like done so much for yourself that you have to make sure your mindset recognizes that and remembers that.
yeah. That was from my session with Kat, our energy healer. She said to me, because suicides come up a little bit, and she said, like, I get that you don't want to dwell on it or even identify with it, but at the same time, it is something you went through. And she has a very like elegant way of speaking. It's all about the human experience and what our soul is going through. And she said, that is the dark giving you reference to the light. And that's the yin and yang.
Mhm. Yeah. So it's really about that feeling of being stuck and why are you there and the big mental component of why you feel that way because it's a big mental thing and like your own happiness and satisfaction with life has to come from within first.
Right. And we also talked about this, but the dopamine of anticipation is greater than actually accomplishing the thing.
Yeah.
So it's truly that you miss the opportunity to take it in while you're living it if you're not stopping and being present.
Yeah. So I ask you, are you willing to do what is necessary to truly improve your life and like making the right changes within first?
Right. It's, one of the big things I wrote in that article was there's no one coming to save you,
Mhm.
and even in terms of money, right? I'm reading like the Rich Dad Poor Dad series and I'm all for it. I'm all about it. And there's so many books in that series and it's teaching me a lot. But he says, you know, people rely on government or some sort of plan or an advisor to give them what they want financially.
Mhm.
And his point is it's on you. Like a lot of the things that we seek safety and security in, it's only this perceived safety and security. There's still risk. There's still other things about it that are not perfect or giving us what we want.
Yeah. So we mentioned, really getting stuck in that cycle of always chasing new goals and expecting to feel better and thinking like things will be better if this person will change or if this situation will change or if this thing in my job will change, whatever it may be. And it's again giving away like your power and your control and setting expectations that are outside of yourself. So what do you do then? You just feel stuck because you're just putting everything outside of you.
Right. Your personal power is what you can do, what you can control, how you can, you know, monitor your beliefs and your thoughts and your habits and the actions that you take. When you make it about other people, it's, you're giving away that power.
Yeah, and it's like we've talked about before too, like it's with your health. Like you have to take your health into your own hands. And we were just talking about this earlier. Like, yes, you're gonna see, your doctors or whoever your medical team is and take their advice and get testing done and whatever. But like if you feel off, you still need to be taking things into your own hands to better yourself in whatever way that is. Seek more guidance, take different actions in your daily lifestyle, change your habits. Like, we both know how important exercising is, and we talk about it often. And we also had a period where we were so stressed out and busy that we weren't prioritizing it. And we felt that so badly
Mm,
that now, like, we were like, no, we have to prioritize this. We have to take this back into our own hands and prioritize it as the first thing we get done every day. And it's changed so many things.
I mean, the big thing with exercise that you and I have really kind of continued the same conversation over and over again is we are better for each other, for our businesses, for our dogs, for our home when we exercise first. When that happens and we, get the endorphins, we get our blood flowing, we get the medicinal movement,
Mhm.
and then we're far more excited and ready for everything else in our day.
Yeah, there's so many people that are unfortunately just kind of stuck and like paralyzed in their life because they're on autopilot and they're stressed. And so these things that should be our top priority become not a priority. And then we forget to do them altogether. And it's going to just keep you feeling stuck again.
Yeah, exercise will vastly improve your ability to manage stress. And I would also say, like, something we talked about even in planning this episode is like when you're not exercising, that stress is like this intense tension in your body.
Mhm.
And the more you exercise, the more you can be comfortable and kind of feel like that's being released.
I know I started going on a whole thing about exercise, but my point in kind of going there is that like we have these basic like physical needs.
Yep.
And we just started kind of learning, reading more about this in our book, How to Be the Love You Seek by Dr. Nicole Lapira, that like if we're not meeting our basic physical needs in terms of our food, our exercise, our sleep, our breathing, like if we're not even meeting those things, like we're gonna of course feel stuck in our external world
Right.
because our body is like we're not connecting with our physical body and our physical presence. So it's going to be reflected in our external.
Yeah. So I think, the first question is really like, how how do I know? How can I tell if I'm caught in the cycle, if I am waiting for things to change? And, that goes back to some of the things you just said. Like, if you have this attitude of it'd be better if this person did this, or if this situation changed. Or, another thing we talked about when planning this episode was just feeling like you're in limbo. Like,
Mhm.
and the example I gave was when I was in recovery, I was living in my parents' house. I didn't have a job. I was literally just in the corner room, in the end of the hallway. I wasn't really, I was just shut off from the world drinking. And that it was like barely living. Um,
Kinda passing the time and then looking back and being like, "Oh, it's been a few months. Wow."
yeah. So I think too, like if to identify that, we kind of talked about it as like being in limbo.
Mhm,
And maybe you're not even in autopilot, but you do feel like everything you're living is the same over and over again.
mhm,
That's a good sign that you're kind of just in a cycle.
right. And it's not like, there are of course, certain things that are going to be the same day to day,
Right.
and that's a good thing too, but it's about, again, like, how you feel, because you
Yeah.
can have that and be totally fulfilled and happy, and that's amazing. And that means that, like, you have done that internal work and you're also prioritizing your needs to feel that true fulfillment. But if you're not and you feel like you're in limbo and you feel like you're stuck, then it's important to take a look at kinda what your day to day is made up of, and, like, if you're taking care of yourself and taking the actions you need to take to grow and actually get to the place you want to be instead of, again, looking externally for that.
Yeah. So I would say monitor your self talk and be able to identify if the things you're saying sound like I'll be happy when,
Mhm.
you know? And, again, I already said this, but a reminder, it comes from that hustle culture of I get that new promotion, I'll get that nicer car, the bigger house. But that attitude and that way of living is a self-fulfilling prophecy. You'll always find something wrong in everything that you have. That nothing will ever be enough because you've never learned to be grateful for where you're at in your present moment. And that was my conversation with Kat because I do have to remind myself of the things I went through
Mhm.
in understanding that it's a lot better these days, you know?
Yeah. So it's really like making that decision to be happy with who you are and where you are now, but you can also still want to continue to grow and change and better yourself, and that is amazing, and, like, that is, again, the human experience to continue to evolve. But you also have to, like, be present and enjoy where you are now in order to continue to grow and appreciate just that journey.
Yeah. I'm divulging a lot of things that we said with Kat, but um she also said to me, you know, when I went through that whole thing, I had a breakdown and I said to my dad, like, you're paying my credit card. It wasn't like ridiculous. It was like 100, $200 a month. And that was my only expense. But I literally broke down and I was like, I'm just siphoning cash off of you and you're paying for me to breathe. And I talked to Kat about this and she said, what did he say? He said, it's okay. You're figuring it out.
Mhm.
And she said, I want you to remember that and write it down on a post it note and keep it close because the whole point of life is literally for you to figure it out. If you knew everything on day two, the human experience would be very boring.
Yeah.
So, that kind of, external circumstances, they don't create your happiness. And the big discussion here is happiness is a choice.
Mhm.
And that's something you have to decide for yourself despite everything else that happens in your day.
And
So,
yeah. I just wanna mention too, like, again, that's not toxic positivity. That is, like, knowing, again, that you may wanna make changes, and there is, of course, gonna be struggles and stress, and there's gonna be days where you're just on autopilot, but at the end of the day, like, the gratitude and being present for where you are right now.
yeah, happiness is a choice, but you're also human. Like
Yeah,
things are going to
absolutely.
happen.
Yeah.
Um so that kind of takes us to internal power, which is this reminder that to change something, it starts with you. Like, we can't look at our job to change something. We can't look at other people to change something. And that's actually a big talking point of the book that we're reading, How to Be the Love You Seek, is you can't expect your partner to adapt to what you need. You yourself need to be able to articulate that, but also change your internal circumstances so that you can be more present, be in that relationship.
Well, we need to be able to meet our own needs,
Right.
which is a huge, huge thing that like we do put on our partners, and we expect partners to bring us happiness and to bring us that fulfillment that we seek. And that's a lot of pressure to be putting on your partner because we as individuals like are meant to be able to do that for ourselves and then, you know, bond and combine your life with another person and create a life together. But as individuals, you still have to be able to do everything that you need for yourself.
Yeah, absolutely.
And change is very scary and very uncomfortable. And the majority of people won't actually make change until they've like reached that I'm done moment. And it's like the current circumstances that they're living in are so uncomfortable that they're more willing to finally try to change because change seems less uncomfortable than where they are currently.
Right. And, we've talked about nervous system regulation and how we cling to comfort because your subconscious wants that predictability. So it's also understanding that in anything you do, any change that you create, you're going to have a level of discomfort. But if you're feeling discomfort, that means you're growing. You're not in the comfort zone anymore. You're creating something.
Yeah.
So we are the drivers of change, like, again, there's nobody coming to save you. There's nobody who's going to say, hey, you had this trauma at this age that you got to work through because it's affecting this. Like, you have to do that deep work. And I think that's also why hustle culture kind of is appealing to people because they don't have to stop and look and take that moment to say, what's going on in my life?
A lot of people become so accustomed to being very stressed and like on the go, go, go that it's actually really uncomfortable to have a regulated nervous system and do the breath work and go to the gym and be getting the good sleep and nourishing your body with good foods because that feeling of actually being in a state of not being stressed is uncomfortable, which is
Yeah.
crazy to think about that you become so comfortable with being stressed that it's actually uncomfortable to be like calm and relaxed.
The power of programming.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah.
To think that your body's actually could be more comfortable. There are people programmed to feel more comfortable and at ease in a state of chaos and stress
Yeah.
that is harmful to their body, harmful to their systems, their nervous system, your brain, your body, everything.
Hmm.
So the only way to create the change is actually taking action. And I know that you talk about passive action and massive action. So do you want to speak to that? I know we've touched on it before, but
Yeah. Passive action is like doing the research, reading things, planning things, putting things in your schedule, creating new daily habits and like that really initial planning stage of what am I going to do to be making change in my life. And then massive action is doing that work. It's taking the action every day. It's physically, exercising or purchasing different foods. It's changing your habits and what is you're used to. So it's really the things that you're thinking and planning and the things that you're actually doing.
yeah, so I have like a really deeply personal relationship with these two because music's been a very interesting journey for me. So on the passive action side, right? I read books on music, I was watching tutorials, I was researching things, I was, learning how to use the softwares, and I learned like that you can do any amount of that, but it doesn't make the music. So the thing to understand about passive action is it's great. It really helps you set yourself up. But I think a lot of people have heard the term analysis paralysis. You get stuck there, and you can get stuck thinking about it, talking about it. And you got to just understand like there's no replacement for doing the work, for being there doing the work. That is the only difference for someone who actually achieves it and does it
Mhm.
is they showed up to do the work.
Yeah.
Passive action is great, but it is not the deep work.
Right.
And
It's a
so,
step. It's part of it, of course.
right. And then getting into massive action, that was where I was actually spending time with the instrument, actually recording in the software. And I actually wrote in the notes here, it's not that sexy process that it sounds like when you're reading or watching tutorials and you're getting amped up and there's the dopamine hit and you're fired up and you're motivated. A lot of times that's a slow grind and it's like baby steps, you know? I learned this next part of the melody, or where does the melody go? And it's just sitting in silence. And it's, and it's like that with anything. Like you have to take the baby steps. And I think part of that is when we're taking passive action, it's easier to feel like it's flowing, like you're learning something. I can watch a video, it's in motion.
Mhm.
Versus massive action, you're going to have quiet moments of needing to really figure out what's the next step in this journey.
Well, it's being, like, patient through the process of getting there, like, you're watching and, of course, like, social media and just society in general shows us, like, the highlight reels, and you're not seeing that it took someone 3 years to get to a certain point, that point that they're now sharing, and you want to see yourself as that person and be there, and you're not there yet,
Yeah.
and then you get discouraged because you don't have the instant gratification, and it's like, "Okay, I have to actually put in a ton of work, and it's gonna take some time," but, like, that time is gonna pass anyways.
Right. I mean, how bad do you want it? Because that time's going to pass anyway.
Yeah, I said recently, I was like, "I wish we started this podcast a few years ago, but hey, we're here now."
Yeah. And it's like, I'd rather start it later in my 20s, early in your 30s for you, later in my 20s than in my 40s, you
Right.
know?
Yeah, of course, and
The
that
only the only difference is like the time's going to pass and I'm going to be older and life's going to change.
right, well, that's kinda what I also had mentioned in a previous episode, like, people in their 30s sometimes don't want to change their job or change their career, go back to school or take a course because they're like, "Oh my gosh, like, I'm in it already, I have the job, like, it's stable and safe and whatever, even though I'm completely unfulfilled and hate it." But, like, the time is gonna pass and you have so much time ahead of you, like, do it.
You know,
Take the step to do something that you really want.
yeah. And it's this too late mentality.
It's never too
It's
late.
never too late, but also when I edited that episode, I wanted to say, and I'm glad I got a chance to say it now, is I think a lot of people have heard this, but I'm going to remind you, don't continue making a mistake because you spent a long time making it.
That's a good one. Yeah.
Like,
The same thing goes for, like, don't continue to stay in a friendship or a relationship just because it's something that you've been in for a long time. Like, if you're unhappy with a job that you've been in for 10 years, you don't have to stay there.
right.
And again, those are external circumstances that we're kind of mentioning, but in terms of your health, your just the way that you are, your daily habits and your mindset, like, just because you've done it for such a long time doesn't mean you can't change it now.
Yeah. And it's this flawed idea of the human experience. Like, it's all downhill from here. I heard that one plenty of times about, leaving your 20s. And it's like, no, it's this declining mentality of your capacity and your limiting beliefs literally dictating how you live your life and your emotions. So you got to take action. You got to step up and understand that it's not too late. I mean, there are people in their 60s, 70s that started exercising.
I saw someone recently, she was 65 years old when she started exercising, and she's now 90, and she is in amazing shape. She's doing squats, she's walking miles every day, and she's 90 something years old. She probably wouldn't have made it that long if she just became like a couch potato and didn't take her health into her own hands.
No, but even her memory. right?
Mhm.
Like one of the big benefits of exercise is your memory and anti-aging as you get older.
Yeah.
So there's so many things that it helps. Sorry, a little bit of a tangent. But yeah, it's never too late. And that is a defeatist mentality. Do not take that on.
Yeah.
Um, Talk to us about excuses because when we're setting goals, we're doing the work, there's passive action and massive action. It's very easy to start making excuses, especially as we get uncomfortable and our subconscious is at play. So, talk to us about that.
I think that time is one of the biggest excuses that people make is not having the time for things. And I saw something recently that I loved, and I'm trying to remind myself of this often is like if, instead of saying that you don't have time for something, say that it's actually not a priority because that is a huge mindset shift and allows you to recognize like you're actually by choosing to not do this, you're saying that other things are a bigger priority. Is that actually true? Like is relaxing and resting on the couch for 3 hours at night watching Netflix actually a bigger priority than going to the gym or something else, whatever it is in your life, you have to realize like what are your true priorities to create a better life for yourself.
Yeah, you got to use the time you have.
Or I'll do X, Y, and Z when this happens, or when I get here, or when I feel better about this, or whatever it may be. Like, recognize if you are creating excuses for yourself and question them.
Yeah, the big thing with saying I don't have time, and I'm very guilty of this. I've had a very bumpy relationship with time. Um, Especially in recent years as I've tried to value it more and allocate. But in saying I don't have time, you take on a scarcity mindset, similar to
Mhm.
how we do with money. And so it perpetuates the idea that you never have enough.
Yeah. And in terms of money, there's so many things that we are programmed to believe takes money to do to improve your life, to improve your health, to improve your job situation or your housing situation or whatever. Of course, there are some things that require money, but not everything does. And there are so many things you can do for yourself that do not require money to improve just the way you feel.
Yeah, I mean, hey, take the gym for example, right? We pay $27 a month
Mhm.
each for our gym membership for a 24-hour gym. It's a phenomenal deal, but my point being we could each eat out one less time a month and cover that.
Right. Or
And
just do it at home for free.
right.
It takes maybe a little more motivation to get yourself
Yeah.
there. Not even I don't even wanna say motivation, I wanna say discipline. It takes a
Yeah.
little more discipline to, like, pick yourself up and do the workout at home, but you can do workouts at home for absolutely free. There's so
Yeah.
many resources out there, YouTube, I mean, we do yoga with Adriene
Oh,
every day now. We're trying to get back into her 30-day journey. I love it. This is my 3rd year doing it. It's completely free, and they are amazing exercises.
I just want to say to anyone listening, if you are not doing yoga,
Try it.
try it. I'm gonna go on a tangent, but I gotta get this one out off my chest. When I was dealing with my lung and I couldn't exercise, I couldn't strain myself, I was doing yoga. We did yoga with Adrian and I did that 30-day program.
Mhm,
This past year, I meditated every day, but it wasn't like a ritualistic, like make time for it, sit down, have a sacred space. It was like before bed, at night, in bed, and it was often rushed. I wanted to get to sleep, whatever. So I'm focusing this year. Like I, I think that's my goal. Like I want to do yoga every day instead.
mhm,
And I think my meditation, I'm okay if it's a little less, but I want to make it a time where I'm sitting in my space on my cushions and really being present. Um, but yoga has become such a deeply personal, spiritual process for me because when I had the issues with my lung, I had to like really listen to my body and hear what it was saying, what hurt, what was tough, what was difficult. Was there strain or discomfort? And I don't think I can express in words how deeply therapeutic that time is to connect with yourself.
Yeah, I don't think that like yoga initially was more about the breath work than it was about the asana, which is the movements. Like we think of yoga as getting into downward dog and
Right.
cat and cow and whatever. And like, yeah, those are great and they feel amazing. But the breath work piece of it
Yeah.
is so grounding and just getting yourself to do those deep belly breaths. If you do that consistently, number one, you're putting movement and breath work together, knocking out two things at once, which is fantastic. But you're like, I felt amazing last night. Like, I
Yeah.
was a little anxious after we had eaten and stuff. And so I was focusing deeply on my breathing and it helped so much.
Yeah. We'll have to get into mysticism practices and ocean breathing and all that. But yeah, it's a powerful practice. But yoga, as we know it today, used to be what was called meditation.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of, especially guys, like overlook it because it's seen as this like, oh, it's just stretching or oh, it's just for women. It's a powerful practice.
And it's tough too. You can
Oh yeah,
definitely build muscle and do all of that. So it's, it can be whatever you want to make it. It can be a slow, relaxing, where it's not too harsh on your muscles and body, but you can also have that practice as well.
yeah. Last thing I'm going to say about yoga in the same point is there are yogas where you're just sitting down and there's yoga that's in movement and challenging and breath work and you're sweating. And the point of yoga is you show up as you are.
Mhm.
Like there's different practices for different people, different states of being, and depending on where you're at in your life that day. That's what I got on yoga. To kind of wrap up, then, we have to catch these thought processes of I'll be happy when this person should do this. If you're shooting all over someone or yourself, keep in mind the the self-talk that surrounds your life, your job, the people around you. And if you're setting contingencies for your happiness, because if that is the case, you'll never be happy. And then from there, understand change starts with you. Your personal power is literally, if we go back to ancient teachings, it is about your attention and what you're putting your attention toward. Your personal power is your attention. Your superpower is where you're focusing.
That's where your energy is going.
Where attention goes, energy flows. And then from there, you take action. And that action can look differently. There's a couple different, kinds of action, your passive action, massive action. I'm sure we could put labels to other different things, but the point being, you can set yourself up for it and you can actually do the work. Do not get caught in the process of setting yourself up for it.
Yeah.
Take action. Do it today.
I think that's it.
That's it.
Mhm.
Friendly reminder, this podcast is sponsored by New Moon Apparel. That is our Zen motivation and moon themed clothing line. You can shop designs at newmoonapparel.com. If you haven't already, you can get our goal alignment and time allocation workbook at newmoonholisticlife.com/goals. Happy New Year. I hope you crush your goals. And we'll see you guys in the balanced wellness community. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.